Welcome to the Happy Disruptors Podcast. If you're a creative thinker with an unconventional approach to your industry, you just might be a happy disruptor. Join your friends at the Great Outdoors Foundation for honest conversations about tackling critical issues like conservation with an uncritical disposition. If you like to smile and get things done, this is the podcast for you.
Hello and welcome back to the Happy Disruptors Podcast. I'm Kaitie Hartman and I am joined today by Christine Halbrook and Lynne Yontz. We have a really interesting topic to dive into. This episode will be releasing during estate planning week. And so we wanted to dive into the topic of planned giving, but taking a really expansive definition of that word. Before we jump in, though, I'd love for each of you to share a little bit more about yourself. So, Christine, why don't you tell us a little bit?
Great. Thank you. My name's Christine Halbrook, and I'm an estate planning attorney here in Des Moines. I have 17 years of practicing primarily in wills, trusts, and estates. I also do some corporate and nonprofit work as well and help a lot of my clients with their charitable gifts.
Excellent. Thanks for being here, Christine. And Lynne, how about yourself?
Hi, I'm Lynne Yontz, and I'm the Chief Charitable Giving Officer at the Community Foundation of Greater Des Moines. I've been there for 11 years, and I lead our charitable giving team. We come to work every day thinking about how we can promote charitable giving and connect donors to causes they care about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you both for joining. I have had the chance to speak a little bit with Lynne and Christine offline, and these two are just incredibly knowledgeable, not only on the traditional definition of planned giving, but also on the spectrum of what it looks like to engage with philanthropic giving. And Christine, you had a really good visual tool for thinking about planned giving and sort of this broader context. So if you wouldn't mind, maybe share your definition and how it might interface with some other kinds of giving.
Yeah, so during our conversation, we sort of threw around some great words like the impact of things and the intention of giving. And so one of the things that struck me during that conversation was that really planned giving is kind of, if you think of a Venn diagram, it's the intersection between impact giving and intentional giving. And looking at the definition of those terms, it really brings to light how that intersection truly helps with the planned giving. So obviously having an impact, what is it that I'm intending to make? What's the difference that I'm looking to do here? And the intention, what's the plan? How am I going to accomplish that? And so where those two things intersect, we have that planned giving scenario.
Absolutely. I love that because as we have discussed, and what you, listener, might already be thinking is, planned giving, I'm 40 years old, I'm 30 years old, I'm not quite to the point in my financial life where I'm ready to begin thinking about those kinds of gifts. But really, when it comes to philanthropic giving, there are lots of vehicles and mechanisms available to us throughout our lifetime that allow us to, as Christine touched on, align our desired impact along with our intentions, align with our values, our aspirations, the organizations that we value in the community. So, Lynne, do you want to talk a little bit about what those tools look like and how you at the Community Foundation partner donors with those vehicles for maximizing their giving?
Absolutely. Well, there are a lot of different ways that people can make a planned gift. And I think some of the conversation we had was that it's really any gift that isn't cash or a check, right? And there are so many other ways that you can give that can be really impactful. And I think oftentimes people think about the planned gift being an after lifetime gift, maybe a gift through their will or through their estate, through their trust, or naming an organization as a beneficiary of their life insurance or their retirement plan. But as you said, it can start much younger than that. And we at the foundation work with a lot of people on making gifts of stock. It might take a little more planning than just writing a check, but it can be very impactful, both for the organization and the donor, with some of the tax benefits that are associated with that. We also work with a lot of individuals and families with a tool called a donor advised fund. And that's very similar to a charitable checking account, but it gives you that opportunity for some time. You can make a contribution into a donor advised fund, and then throughout your lifetime, you can make grants out to all the favorite organizations that you want to support. So it gives you that time to be thoughtful about where you might want to make that impact.
Yeah, I love that. And for, a person who is maybe just beginning their philanthropic journey, how might they get acquainted with those tools? Or, is that something that they independently should be seeking out?
Well, we're fortunate at the Community Foundation that we have a website called Give DSM, and it's a great tool for anybody to go online and see this online catalog of nonprofit organizations who have posted their urgent needs, some of their pressing needs, some of their ongoing operational needs, as well as their campaigns. Yeah. And people can sort by their favorite areas of interest and see what's out there and what the needs are. We also have a tool called a Giving Guide that people can go online or request a hard copy of it. And with that Giving Guide, you walk through and take a look at what are your values, going through a basic checklist. What are your areas of interest? Again, just a real basic checklist that you can do on your own. And then give some time to reflect on that and pull together what might you want your charitable impact statement, your charitable mission statement to be for you personally. Yeah. And that can be done at all ages. We have children who participate in that as well as older adults. So those are a couple of the tools that we work with individuals and families on.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you are already hitting on that more expansive definition of planned giving where, absolutely there are some more traditional routes. And Christine, I want to get your take on those here shortly. But even outside of that, what does it mean to engage with philanthropic giving? How are you determining how you want to be investing your philanthropic giving from a very early age? I mean, really amazing to think about having those conversations with your children, even, really instilling those values early on in life. I think that's so beautiful.
We have a lot of generous families who want to pass on that legacy of giving and give back to those organizations that have really meant something to them personally. Yeah. And that can be done at all ages, for sure.
Absolutely. So, Christine, you obviously are working with many clients who would fall into maybe the more conventional demographic for planned givers. Can you talk a little bit about that process and, at what age should we start thinking about some of those big end-of-life questions?
Yeah, so as part of the process for the estate planning intake process, when I speak with my clients, one of the things I always bring up is, do you have any charities that speak to you, or are you charitably inclined as far as your giving goes? And having conversations with them as to what that means. And sometimes the response I get is, oh, we don't have enough, to be worried about that. And I said, well, do you have a charity that speaks to you or that you have a connection with? And oftentimes they will be able to easily list off a few. And I say, well, let's take a look at your assets and let's see, maybe there's a very tax effective way for us to accomplish your goals. Yeah. So using those IRAs as a wonderful way to be able to designate a charity as a beneficiary on an IRA. I say to the clients, listen, dollar for dollar, your children will be inheriting that and also inheriting a tax bill with it, right? But the charity is a nonprofit. It's tax exempt, and therefore it is exempt from paying those taxes. So dollar for dollar, that IRA is going to go farther to a charity than it is to your kid. So maybe we leave other assets to your children and certainly leave a great legacy that way, but then include the charities in that plan, which is another way to leave a great legacy.
Yeah, absolutely. You're segueing really well into our next question of the advantages of planned giving. And you've touched on that a little bit as it relates to tax advantages. But, can you share a little bit more about what it looks like to creatively estate plan? I think you shared one example where oftentimes donors have physical assets that might have more value to an organization than they would to one of their heirs or their dependents. You want to share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so just today I had clients come in and the wife loves to sew, and that is her passion. And she's a member of a guild, a nonprofit organization. And she said very clearly, my husband doesn't want anything to do with my sewing stuff. But it has all beautiful equipment, beautiful fabric. She hand spins things. I mean, it really, from just the very beginning to the end of the process, it's quite amazing. But all of that means something to someone, right? And so she's going to be leaving that tangible personal property, as I would refer to it, right, to the charity, because then that way it's going to make a difference. And they're going to be able to use that property to then go out to the community and teach other people how to sew or knit or, you know, any of those skills that she was very passionate about. So there's a lot of opportunities that exist out there that's different than just writing a check. And to Lynne's point, I love the idea of having this mission statement, a charitable mission statement. I think if you can start with that and then you sort of say, okay, how can I fulfill that mission statement? And, you know, finding those ways of not just writing the check, but also what assets do I have, or, you know, do I have time that I can donate? And we also talked a bit about, you know, there are employers that support, right?
Yeah,
their
absolutely.
Employees volunteer hours. So they might either match if an employee makes a donation, a cash donation to an organization. Some employers will match that. But also some of them, if you volunteer hours and then you report that back to the company, they'll make a cash donation, you know, due to the amount of hours that you work with your employer. And it's just a wonderful thing to check out. It's a wonderful thing that some employers do. And if that's an opportunity, what a way to leverage that gift back to the community.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think we were, when we were covering that concept of employee giving, one of you, I can't remember now, it was such a great analogy of, you know, you are presented with this phenomenal benefits package, and one of those is potentially an IRA or a 401k, and your employer may have some kind of match contribution. And so obviously it's a great idea to try and maximize those contributions to your retirement account. Along the same lines, if there is match giving available through your employer, I mean, that's an incredible way to, you know, exponentially increase your contributions to a nonprofit of your choice, which is really cool. As an employee, that's an incredible value that with just a little thoughtfulness, you're able to increase your gift, sometimes doubling it, which is amazing. Yeah. So we've discussed a little bit, you know, Lynne, with the charitable giving mission statement or vision statement. What are some other reasons or motivations for planned giving?
I think the biggest one is people really have a passion for nonprofit organizations. There are many organizations that have made a big impact on individuals personally or made a big impact on their loved ones. And we have a lot of generous individuals and families in the greater Des Moines area. And so they really want to give back to see those organizations continue to be successful for that next generation. So I think a key piece is that personal passion and involvement that they've had directly with nonprofit organizations that are making a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Christine, with your clients, would you say similar situations? What is that motivating factor for folks to you know, make a planned gift to a nonprofit versus maybe passing it on to one of their family members or something along those lines?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is exposure to the organization, right? They've either been on the board or been involved with the mission of a charity. And more and more what I'm seeing is that sometimes, you know, my clients have had an interaction with a charity. Maybe they had a grandchild that was at the University of Iowa hospitals, for example, or some sort of, you know, had some situation where a charity had stepped in to help or assist or provided some benefits to a family member, and it really impacted them and spoke to them. And they thought, you know, it was pretty amazing that this charity came and helped my family, and I want to go help that charity to be able to continue to reach out and help others. So I am seeing that more and more as, you know, we have such great charities that really impact families of all kinds.
Yeah, absolutely. what would be your advice to someone who maybe is either just beginning their career or maybe between the ages of 40 and 60 who haven't yet engaged with the philanthropic sector? What's that first step of figuring out what you love? If you don't have a personal connection, how can you align your values with the charitable organizations that exist?
I think one option is to talk with your mentors. Again, in this community, we have a lot of great mentors. We have a lot of people who have become involved in nonprofit organizations by volunteering their time, as you mentioned earlier, either hands-on time, going and helping build a structure or clean up a park or what have you, or they're volunteering their time on committees. So that's a great way to take a look around with your peers and mentors and where are they getting involved, and ask questions. We have a lot of very generous individuals who are willing to take the time to really talk to you about where there are needs and how to align that with maybe what your personal experience has been or where you'd like to project your impact for the future.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, Lynne, did you mention that there was a website that people could go to?
Yes, I think especially for our local listeners, the GiveDSM website is another super helpful tool to start thinking through how you might connect your personal passions to some of the organizations that exist here locally.
Yeah, the GiveDSM is definitely a place to look where you can contribute financially, but we also have a strong website in the community hosted by United Way of Central Iowa, unitedwaydm.org, that lists all of the different volunteer opportunities, whether that's the hands-on volunteering or the boards and committees and leadership roles. So I would definitely encourage people to take a look at that too.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. We've covered quite a bit so far, but one thing that we haven't talked about is some misconceptions about planned giving. What are those roadblocks? What are the misconceptions that your clients or folks who are looking to get connected with the Community Foundation, what are those objectives that they have to planned giving that are maybe not working with the full picture, or maybe could just benefit from some insider knowledge from the two of you?
Yeah, so for a lot of my clients, it's like, oh, I'm just in here because I need a will to nominate a guardian for a minor child. And I said, okay, well, considering what I talk about most of the time is death with my clients, right? I say, okay, well, hear me out. If something tragic were to happen and you guys both passed and your kids had passed too, then where do you want your assets to go? And it's sort of, the misconception is, it doesn't relate to me. I don't have enough money to make it worthwhile, and I don't have any extra to give, right? And it's like, okay, well, there's other ways to give that are, that are available. And so I think just having that conversation of working that in, but for a lot of them, it's really just, I have young kids.
Yeah.
I just need the basics. I don't want anything fancy. And, my response is, this isn't something fancy. This is just an opportunity for you to give. And if that speaks to you, great. And if not, that's fine too. But have the conversation and make that decision intentionally.
Yeah. I think that is unfortunately a reality of being finite beings, that we have an expectation of what life will look like, but there are always opportunities for extenuating circumstances. And I think the intentional component of the giving really allows you to think through in a thoughtful way how you want to be remembered, how you want to leave an impact on the world. So I think it is a challenging exercise to walk through, but valuable nonetheless.
I try to make the conversation about death be a little bit more fun than just doom and gloom.
Yeah, I can imagine that would be a challenging balance to strike, but it is a reality.
Well, I was just going to add to that. You talk about a family with young children, and I think one of the misperceptions is that planned giving is just for older people, right?
Yeah.
And we do work with a lot of younger individuals and couples. We just helped a young woman who's in grad school pull together some instructions to have on record with the Community Foundation. She was establishing her first estate plan, and what does she want to do with those assets after her lifetime? And she had very specific organizations that she wanted to support in particular percentages, right? And she's just starting her career.
I love that.
We had another family who grew up here in central Iowa, had gone away to another state right out of college, but then came back here to raise their family, and had 2 young kids, and decided that they wanted to start down that path of being philanthropic, and started with what we call a seed fund. So again, another misperception in addition to age is that you have to have a lot of money to do a planned gift. And with a seed fund, you start with $1,000, and then you contribute $600 every year until it gets to $10,000. And then once it gets to $10,000, you can start making grants out of it to support your favorite charities. So it's a great way to start with a smaller amount. It might be a large amount for some people, but still it's a way to get going down that path of a philanthropic journey and grow that over time, and then have that be available to your family as your family continues to grow.
Yeah, I think that idea or picture in our heads of what a traditional planned giver might look like is vastly different than the folks who are working with the Community Foundation, every single day. I think you shared a few examples of giver profiles that are maybe outside of that traditional demographic. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Sure. Like we said, some people think you have to be ultra high net worth in your personal balance sheet in order to make an impact with a planned gift. But we had a school teacher that we worked with here in Des Moines, and as part of her legacy, she wanted to be sure that children had the opportunity to have scholarships. So she endowed scholarships for a couple of the local high schools, and then she also endowed some scholarships with some local organizations that provided arts and culture opportunities for students who wouldn't otherwise be able to afford it, or some wellness activities. So again, school teachers that have lived that life with youth and wanted to continue to see that making a positive impact in the community. Another one was a local server at the local Noah's Ark restaurant here in Des Moines. Her career was there at Noah's, and over time she built up dollars that then went into an endowment for her favorite organization. So people from all different walks of life that have had meaningful careers in a lot of different ways, and just really are generous and want to give back.
Yeah, I love that so much. And just thinking about asking that question of how can I align my giving with my values and with the mark that I want to leave on the world. Christine, I'm wondering, if you, obviously there is a certain demographic that is coming to you for estate and will planning, but maybe share a little bit about some atypical clients that you have worked with. Do any come to mind?
Yeah, so I have some clients that are a little bit more sophisticated on that end, that have, charitable remainder trusts or charitable lead trusts that might have private foundations and things like that. But there are other clients that, really just are giving their time and their talent to charities. And I love hearing those stories and hearing the impact that they've had on the community. So I think, to Lynne's point, it's not just about writing the check. And it might not be about writing the check right now. Maybe you come up with a plan, right? Maybe you don't have the resources right now, but the idea is that in the future, you're going to have something. You're going to start that donor advised fund. You're going to start the seed fund. You're going to take the first step. And then you've got a goal that you can budget for and work on. And it's pretty amazing what you can do when you've set your resources to that.
Absolutely. And both of you have done a great job of mentioning throughout the episode how you can support the charitable sector outside of even giving of cash or of planned gifts. Volunteering, Lynne, you mentioned the United Way of Central Iowa's resource for volunteer opportunities. As as someone who works in the nonprofit sector, also just verbally sharing about the mission, about the nonprofits that align with your values and support causes that are close to, your heart. That's of so much value to those organizations. Other thoughts on how you can engage with the philanthropic sector, maybe even before you're ready to take that first step and make a gift?
Yeah, I think definitely just finding what you're passionate with and connecting with them. It's, I remember as a kid going to various organizations and stuffing envelopes, because they needed help with that. And just, or even my mom would go to board meetings and at Orchard Place, and I would go play on the playground with the other kids, and just the opportunity to be there and sort of interact, it sort of instilled in me, that it's not just about writing the check. You can see the excitement on people's faces when you're there to interact with them or read a book or, help out with an after-school club or anything like that. Yeah. There's so many places where you can really feel like you're making a big impact.
Most definitely. Yeah. Lynne, how about you? Any other thoughts to add?
Well, I was just thinking too about your comment about the advocacy and just speaking up and showing appreciation, writing a letter to the executive director of an organization or to the staff, reaching out to have a conversation with the executive director of a nonprofit and asking them, what are your needs? Here are some of my personal talents and areas of interest. Where might that align with what you have needs for? So I think that people underestimate the personal talents and abilities that they have and how those could be very helpful to organizations, especially serving on those variety of committees.
Yes.
And organizations have a variety of needs. So I think just raising your hand and making yourself available and reaching out is important.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. What are, for each of you, what is a takeaway that you want the listener to leave with today? I think you both have shared a wealth of knowledge and information, but if there was one thing that you'd want them to leave with, what would that be? Maybe you, Christine, first.
Sure. So I'm going to go a little biased on the estate planning side and say that, have that conversation with your estate planning attorney and make sure that you aren't leaving money on the table or making a unwise tax decision. There are a lot of strategies out there that are available, and they're pretty simple. And so I just would encourage the listeners to have that conversation, because I think you'd be surprised and impressed with all the ways that you can give, whether that be now or later, through an estate plan.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lynne, how about you?
I would say to keep it simple. It doesn't have to be a complex, overwhelming concept to get engaged with planned gift to an organization. So I would just say to keep it simple and take some time to reflect on what's really most important to you.
Most definitely. I think that's something we can all appreciate, is it actually can be much easier than we think it is. So
for sure.
Excellent. Well, we are going to wrap up our conversation today with a segment we like to call Let's Whiteboard It. We're big fans of whiteboarding ideas at the Great Outdoors Foundation. So on each of your tables, you've got a whiteboard and a marker on that little bat. Yep, right there. This is, people love the sounds of the markers coming off. It's like some ASMR.
Yeah, no, I like it. Here you go. Listeners, you're welcome.
Yes, exactly. So our question for today, in thinking about giving, legacy is what comes to mind for me, whether it's legacy while you're living, legacy after you have passed. What does legacy mean to the two of you? And you can either write or draw. And while Lynne and Christine are thinking through their answers, just a reminder to like and subscribe wherever you are listening to this episode. Make sure to share it with someone who would benefit from learning more about planned giving. And be sure to follow along with what the Great Outdoors Foundation is doing on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and X. We'll give Lynne a little bit more time. Excellent. All right. Christine, you look ready to go.
I'm ready.
What does legacy mean to you?
Leaving an impact on something or someone.
Love it. As an attorney, I think you probably work through definitions.
I did that
quite often.
I just started with impact, and then you saw how I built around it.
Yes,
I was
love
going to do a defined term, legacy, with the quotes around it.
Yes.
Hereinafter referred to
Hereinafter,
as.
right. Yes, I love that. All right, Lynne, how about you?
Well, I went with simple, and I left it with family.
Yeah,
I think that family is really key, and there's all different types and shapes and sizes of families.
Yes.
So I think we all have that opportunity to make an impact and leave a legacy through our families.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Well, thank you both again for joining today. The conversation has been so meaningful, and I know it'll be valuable to our listeners. So thank you all for joining, and we will see you next time.